I would also, as an example on campus that comes up a lot, right? Like, if a campus group invites Milo Yiannopoulos or someone else like that to come and speak, right? This question arises, like, should the university be giving this person a platform, right? And the kind of free speech argument says, well, someone invited him to come, he should get to come and speak. And the person in me who was a young queer student and who now mentors young queer students and is furious on their behalf, right? Just the fact that they have to possibly walk through the gauntlet to get to their class, right? Would really love to say, Milo, just don't come. Don't invite him. Don't let him come on our campus. But I would argue that will actually, if you mount that kind of campaign, it will give him a lot more attention. He will, as we were speaking before, he'll sell a lot more books as a result. He will, in fact, be putting money into his pocket. And what the ACLU actually recommends for this kind of thing is, rather than showing up and protesting, hold your own event elsewhere on campus, make it bigger, make it better, have a massive pride party on the other side of campus, and starve him of attention.
I actually think there's some evidence that no platforming works.
Yeah.
I mean, Yiannopoulos says it works. He says the reason he's broke is that no one will handle transactions for him and no one will place ads for him and he can't get speaking gigs anymore. So for me, it's actually not a philosophical opposition to no platforming. It's a completely like instrumental concern that if you create a system for that doesn't have checks and balances for deciding who gets to speak and when and removing people from the public sphere, that just generally speaking, powerful people are better at using those systems than powerless people that we want to defend from them. And so I'm not saying those systems are never appropriate. I'm just saying that if you don't take that into consideration, you have no business being surprised when the first person it gets turned against is you.
There have been schools that have mandated in the school policy you must have trigger warnings.
Yeah, well,
that have then, when they have wanted to target and fire a tenured faculty member, gone through their syllabuses where there was no student complaint, picked out a work that had some kind of controversial content, said this faculty member violated the school policy against having trigger warnings, and fired that faculty member. When the firing was really about the faculty member speaking up against the administration doing something unscrupulous, but it can be turned into something to victimize that faculty member. So are trigger warnings wonderful? Yes. Are trigger warnings also something that an unscrupulous person in a position of power can, if they are badly legislated, exploit to silence people? Also, yes. Because this has been a hot issue specifically here on campus for the past couple of years, since the publication of University of Chicago's new announcement about its speech code and anti-safe spaces and anti-trigger warnings, and then the series of protests about the invitation of Steve Bannon to speak on campus, which may or may not ever occur, but certainly the protest itself and the fact of the invitation has been a huge subject. And I've had numerous long, multi-hour sit-down debates with students about this. And over I've found that heated groups of students will be attacking each other on this extremely polarizing issue. And I have found it helpful to frame it in terms of a study that was done, I think, 5 years ago on optimism in hamsters. And it wasn't just the findings of the study, but actually the framing of the study that's useful for thinking about this. So they had hamsters, and you give the hamsters little dishes of clear liquid, which have no smell, but some of them have sugar in the water and are delicious and sweet if you lick them. And some of them had a bitter chemical in it, so if you taste it, it's nasty. And you cannot, as a hamster, tell which one is going to be which until you taste it. You just have to sort of trust it and try. And they also had 2 different hamster habitats where they ran this test, one of which was a really comfortable hamster habitat with wheels and bedding and tunnels and dim lighting because they're nocturnal and they like that, and everything a hamster could want. And the other one was bare metal, no cover, bright light, uncomfortable space.
Fox News. Prison.
Right. And the hamsters in the comfortable habitat kept trying the liquids. Even after, for a while, they turned out to be bad, sometimes like good. Other times they were still prepared to taste it to find out. And the ones in the uncomfortable habitat very rapidly gave up and would no longer try the liquids. Now, the study was about optimism and trying to get across the idea that when you have lived in a harsher and less supportive environment, you find it harder to keep trusting the world enough to try things that might hurt you. But I found it a useful way to think about the college campus and what the two sides of that debate are trying to protect. Because the people who were trying to say, we need safe spaces, we need trigger warnings, we need this to be a comfortable environment, by putting Steve Bannon's name on a poster and having that on the wall, you're causing pain and discomfort to every student of color and other person that Bannon's rhetoric would say should not be here. That kind of person is trying to make the habitat comfortable, right? Is trying to make sure that this habitat that we're creating for undergraduates and graduate students to try to be the best nurturing environment possible is a comfortable habitat, not only for the students that support Bannon, but for the students that Bannon's message really is every time you see that poster, it tells you, you are not human, you should not be here. And it makes that be the harsh habitat. The other students, the ones who are trying to defend an absolutist free speech policy, we're trying to protect the water and making sure there's still the sour with the sweet. Making sure that in addition to reading comfortable literature, we're reading The Merchant of Venice, and we're reading Kafka, and we're reading about Nazism, and Kathleen Ballou is teaching her course on the history of hate groups and the KKK, because those are scary, uncomfortable things that we need to be studying. And it really was two different concerns that the two sides of the debate were trying to defend without realizing. One group trying to say we have to have policies that will make sure there is always the sour with the sweet in the water, that we are always, as objects of study, engaging with things, even things people find icky and uncomfortable. And the other is saying this has to be a comfortable environment, because if you are a student who is someone that a message from Bannon tells you you shouldn't be here, and you walk past that poster 10 times on the way to and from your dorm every day, getting repeatedly stabbed by this message, you are not human, you don't have the strength at the end of the day to get home and read The Merchant of Venice. It is too much, and you can't take it, and you can't taste that bowl of water anymore. And both sides in this debate are absolutely right. It's vital to develop that comfortable habitat so that we have the strength to taste the water. It's vital to make sure the protections are there so that the sour is always in the water with the sweet. But the problem of trying to achieve both of these things at once is a very difficult one, especially when we don't realize that they're two parallel but separate goals, both of which are strongly affected by any attempt that we make to circumscribe what speech happens where.